from the first video you saw there, that was my sister swearing, not me. But that was my trap. I made it with chopsticks, I made it with string, and obviously those planks. Could probably cause some serious damage if it were to actually have a small rodent or something underneath it. I had a battle with my cat for the whole time we were making it, so he wouldn't run underneath it. But it was fun. I designed my trap based on the marmot trap of the Kit Squat band. Sorry if I mispronounced that. They have a design that's very similar to one that I made. Their design follows something that's similar. They have a trigger mechanism that is the bottom part. So it goes like that. They have their first stick, which goes up. Second stick, which is on top of the trigger, goes up. They connect. They have a little bit of rope that ties it around. The difference is that they have another stick that goes in between those two. I do not have that stick, as well as that my trigger is a little bit different. And then for their design, they had two pieces of wood, but they had two logs that they would drop down. For mine, it's similar but different. So now we will go into the physics aspect of my design. So my design had a chopstick on the bottom. Sorry, I'll redraw that. Chopstick on the bottom had a little bit of an indent so that the chopstick that was touching it could fit. Then the other one was to the ground. There was rope that tied it around here. There was rope here, which tied it there. Forgot to include the rope for the Kit Spot band, but there's a rope in the similar design area. And then mine goes directly to the large object, which is the planks for me. So let's look at the forces and energy. So there is a lot of potential energy. Currently for this. It is at its max. There is no kinetic energy at all until the trap is triggered, which this is the trigger, which is the one popsicle stick that, sorry, not popsicle stick, chopstick that everything is on top of. So there is the force of gravity that is pulling down on the large object. The normal force is from these two, which push against it. The normal force then comes from the ground and this trigger. And then there's also gravity that's pulling down on everything else. So how this thing doesn't just explode to the sides is due to the tension in the ropes, which are, so it wants to, sorry, I'll redraw. It wants to push away. It wants to push away at each of these points because it just wants, the load is so great that it wants to just explode. But the tension in the ropes keep it so that it doesn't explode. So it's pushing against as well as it's pushing this way. So that's the forces. When the trigger is moved, it looks really complicated currently, but when the trigger is moved, what basically happens is this popsicle stick here moves to this side, or hopefully moves away, so forward or backward, not to the side. If it moves to the side, like shown in my video, it could misfire, but if there is enough force, you can still activate it with the string. But it'll move to the side and everything will go crumbling down, and you'll start to get rid of that potential energy and turn it into kinetic energy. So now we're going to go into the cultural side. So almost every indigenous group has some way of hunting, fishing, or trapping in BC. It really depends if they are coastal, if they have a lake nearby. Not all of them fish, but most do. So some examples of traps. There's a lot of traps in fishing. An easy trap is just boarding up a river, so it's like a dam, and then they allow some fish to go through, but then they also pick off fish for food. They have other ones, which is a stone pit trap, which basically follows a flow of water that has tide. They put stones in specific areas so that when the tide goes out, there is no water there, and any fish then goes to food / resources and such. And the last one that I've researched was they had a tide that was super strong, and so the fish would swim up, but the tide would slightly go to the right, or whichever way was wanting to go, and so they would put nets here. Different areas had different things. The one that I researched used willow and cedar fibers for their netting, but you could obviously be using different fibers depending on the indigenous group. So for my marmot trap, I based it off the Kissbot band. It wasn't the same, but the culture behind it and the use of it was for obviously food. It could be used for a cultural event. It could be to teach someone how traps work, as well as that it's used for the resources of the animal, which was the marmot. These normal uses for the trap started to get a little more lucrative as the fur trade started, which basically just meant everyone started to use more traps because they wanted fur for money to buy things. This could lead for guns, this could have booze, this could have a bunch of other things, which lots of people wanted, which was fair. And if they used the traps, which was one of the best ways to get the marmot fur, they could easily get it without expending much resources. Currently, aboriginal culture and other people that live in the wild or just have pests in general use traps to catch, which for pests it's to catch and remove or to kill, and for others it could be for food, resource, and such. But yeah, that wraps up my project. Hope you enjoyed.